Well, at one time there was a doctor that was a member of the group. And the doctor, they were telling me was one of his things that he was involved with basically was autopsies. And that was his specialty. Well, when I looked at his specialty up, it also goes back to chemistry, body chemistry. Well, the story came to me that at one time that he was summoned to go down to Dayton, Wright-Patterson. And the reason he was summoned to go down there was because they wanted somebody from his specialty to do an autopsy on basically a body. And when he got down there, the body was not human. And it wasn't just him that was being summoned in. Evidently what they'd done, according to the story, is they looked for individuals of all various specialties from around the country. So they brought all these different individuals in with different unique specialties to examine the same body. And what they were to do, according to the information I got, was they did their examination, they reviewed it, they wrote a report out, and then they were told to forget everything, according to the story. Well, he evidently had mentioned it to a couple of people in the group, that that's what had happened, that he was summoned down there. And he was involved with the Case Western, which is associated with Cleveland Clinic. And he was considered at that time, I guess, one of the top people in his specialty in the country. Well, if you saw him, I mean, from what they told me, he said he just appeared like any normal person because he lived in the region. He didn't act like who he was, but he kept it very private on what he did, that he was a doctor at the clinic. He just never promoted it. When he went into the meetings, he was very quiet. He did his thing. He had the interest in the group. But he didn't come out and say, hey, I'm a doctor at the clinic, except only a couple people knew it. Well, I was trying to pin the time frame down, and I could not pin the time frame down on when he did that autopsy. But I was always curious. And I don't want to connect dots incorrectly, but I was always curious if when that individual who I talked to, when he had his walk-in on the autopsy, if that wasn't the same time frame that this doctor was summoned from the clinic to do it. And I don't think it was that many years apart if it was a different instant. It seemed like they were from a relatively same time frame.
Okay, now here's a kicker. Being around bodies, they do not refrigerate and stay that way forever. And if you're talking 1980s, and this obviously wasn't the Roswell crash, aliens. No. So exactly how many crashes could there possibly have been and where?
That's a good question. That's a good question because I don't know where the origin of this was from. Now, there's always been the rumor, though, that at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, they have cryogenic chambers. One of the stories goes that around the area, it's actually not that far from the museum, is where the mysterious, not the hangar, but actually the building is at, where the aliens were housed at. But there reportedly were chambers put down below the ground.
I could believe that, yeah.
Yeah, and they said that at one time there was like a certain type of materials brought in that were highly unusual for building that were associated with that type of thing. And they were put down below ground. Now, I don't know if they kept them in a cryogenic chamber, if that would have any effect. It was the same thing. I doubt it, but who knows how many they've got, Barbara? That would be a good question. I'm one that believes that, I mean, there's got to be a lot more than a Roswell.
I would assume that. I mean, there's been reports of a lot of different crashes and stuff, so there got to be more than just what was there.
Oh, yeah. We had one, it was kind of an unusual one I came across, and the reason I came across is it was from the same area that I used to live in. There was a one night, for some reason, I don't know why, I was just on the internet, and I was looking up UFO, and I came across a video interview with a couple of little old ladies in their 80s. And they happened to be in the same town, small town of like 20,000 people that I used to live in. So I'm like, wait a minute, UFO, two little ladies? I got to see this, you know? And the guy that interviewed him, his name was Grant Cameron. He's a UFO researcher. He's been doing a lot of research for years, and he knows, his specialty is what the presidents know or he thinks they know. Well, he was interviewing these little ladies, and the interview goes back to, trying to guess, maybe 2000, somewhere in there. They were talking about their dad. Their dad, who was a Presbyterian minister from an area about 20, 30 miles from Ashland. Their dad had been talking to his cousin. And he went to see his cousin in Washington, D.C. And his cousin took him into the Capitol building. And this happened to be in the 1940s. And this is the story their dad told him before he passed away. He says, yeah, my cousin took me into the Capitol building, and he took me down to like a basement in the Capitol building, and he shows me jars with aliens in them. He says there were alien bodies in jars. Now, you think, first of all, okay, here's a Presbyterian minister telling the story. Here's a minister. And here's two little ladies relaying the story. Again, they seemed very honest. They would be very straightforward. They said, yeah, it had to be, we weren't sure the exact date, but it had to be the 1940s sometime. Well, they said, well, what about the Capitol building? When they checked out the Capitol building, there's no area in that region now like the basement, but in the 1940s, there was. But something that's the bigger part of the story is who the cousin was. His cousin was Cordell Hull. Now, Cordell Hull was the Secretary of State for FDR. And think about this. I mean, here FDR got elected in 4 terms, and Cordell Hull, I think, was, remember correctly, he was like the Secretary of State almost the whole time, if not the whole time. So here you've got one of the more powerful men in the country taking the Presbyterian minister down and showing him bodies in the Capitol building. And this was the 1940s, early 1940s, right around the wartime is when they, guessed. But that was before Roswell. And there was a crash in Missouri that might have been related to that was before Roswell. So I mean, there's who knows how many cases out there, Barbara, that there have been crashes, that things have been mysteriously ferreted away.
Yeah. Maybe the Battle of Los Angeles really wasn't such a farce after all.
No, I mean, there's so many incidents out there that I'd love to have that Mr. Peabody Wayback Machine to go back and check out and research, especially if I have the tools I do now to do research with. If I go back and check out, of course, well, first of all, we wouldn't have to worry about satellites back in the 1940s. But if you have the tools we have available now, I think it'd be an interesting challenge. I'm up for it.
Well, I've heard that story on a couple of other different episodes on UFO shows about the guy who had went into the lab and happened to see the body and everything. So somebody's leaked somewhere, or somebody just made the story up to start with.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I mean, the guy could produce all the documentation showing me he was there at the base at that time. But the thing that we don't have at the end of the day that the skeptics are always going to look for is, okay, show me the body.
Right.
Or like they say online, no pictures, it didn't happen.
Yeah.
That's it.
All right, we're going to take us a quick little break, and got lots more to talk about when we come back. So just mute your mics and listen for me when I come back, because you won't hear anything till then. So, Jeff, you want to take us out?
Yep. You're listening to the Paranormal View with para-x.com with hosts Henry Foister, Ceiling Cat Barbara Duncan, and myself, Jeffrey Gould, with tonight's awesome guest, Thomas Wertman. So stay tuned for more of the Paranormal View after the break.
Whether you're listening at home, at work, or anywhere, thanks for making Para-X part of your day. Your source for everything paranormal, Para-X.
And welcome back, everybody, right here to the Paranormal View and the Para-X Radio Network. I want to thank everyone for being with us tonight, those in the chat room and those listening from around the world. So hope everybody's enjoying the show tonight. We have with us Barbara Duncan. Maybe.
If I turn off my mute. Hello, everybody.
And speaking of those from around the world, where do we have listeners at tonight?
They're coming in from the United States, the United Kingdom, Singapore, Canada, and unknown.
All right. The unknown is back. They want to know what we know about them. That's what it is. Aliens. Okay. And we got Jeffrey Gould with us.
Hello.
And we have our great guest back with us, Thomas Wertman.
Still here.
They haven't come get you yet.
They haven't got me yet after that last story.
Well, on the flip side of the whole security thing, there's also people that are adamant that they've seen UFOs or are really interested in UFOs. And I mean, it's not like groupie status, but still, are there people who are so insistent, like in ghost hunting, that you go to investigate their house and they turn out to be crazy and scarily, personal safety scary crazy?
Yeah.
Like Simpsons cat lady crazy? Or?
Yeah.
Yeah, we have some of those who, they're, and the good thing is they're few and far between, at least the ones I've encountered. That, what you get first of all is when you get this, let's say, video or these pictures sent to you, the first words are, I know it's not an airplane. I know it's not a satellite. I know it's not planets. And I've taken hundreds of videos of these. And it kind of sets up a little, let's just say a caution flag. I'm not saying a warning flag, but this be cautious. And it's how you approach the witness after that. And I've had a couple situations over the years where I've run into that. And it's, right out of the gate that if you do find an explanation for it, I'm not saying that I will, but if you do, the witness may not be acceptable of it right out of the gate.